Good morning. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Kwagala, your host. Is Uganda's tax regime becoming unpredictable and therefore rendering it unsustainable in the long term? Well, today's conversation focuses on the newly passed 5 government tax bills and the new taxes to be implemented in the fiscal year 2024-2025. Also on the program, we assess the readiness of the government and the expectations of the public in as far as the census is concerned. Viewers, you are most welcome to this program, and I now have the pleasure and the honor to introduce my panelists to you. Starting from my immediate left is Mr. Joseph Tahinduka, who is a program associate working with the Parliamentary Watch and an analyst with the Center for Policy Analysis. Joseph, you're most welcome to the program. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you for having me. I hope that the enumerator has reached you and you gave them the details that were necessary. And now that they have your details, let's now talk about how the new taxes which Parliament passed this very week and how they are going to affect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for joining us. Next to Joseph is Honorable Paul Mwiru, who is a former legislator. Honorable, you're most welcome to the program. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you. Hello. I'm here to make a contribution to give national guidance on the issues, and I wish you all the best in the program.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable, again, let me start with you by asking you to put some context to the component of taxation. In the week ending, we've seen the government pass 5 tax bills and also roll out its priorities in as far as the new financial year is concerned, to try to put an end to the budgeting process, even as we await the implementation of the new fiscal year. So just help, cast an impression for the viewers to understand what is this all about and how is it likely to affect them.
Thank you, Isaac. I think we need to start from the basics, that there is no way a government can run without payment of tax. The rationale of a tax is that actually you pay money to government as a tax to enable government undertake goods and services which you cannot individually take as an individual. That's why you realize that when you look at, like when you do business and get profit, the 1 inch remain, or the taxpayer remains with the biggest. It's supposed to remain, like if you first pay for income tax, government takes 30%, you remain with the 70%. Meaning that a sensible government would have to create an environment for the taxpayer to pay the tax and more taxpayer to come into the bracket, the threshold of actually paying a tax. When you look at tax per se, it has canons of a tax. That what would you be looking at a tax so that everybody enjoys and likes to pay a tax? Of course, one of them is fairness. Administrative ease. You understand? Among others. What we are actually dealing with now is that there is over-taxation of a handful of people, because if you look at our tax base, 85% of it comes from the CBD, the Central Business Area. That is Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, Entebbe, that is still Wakiso. Maybe you can say Mpija, and then some few districts. Or you can say maybe around the 5, or you can even call them 10. And we are having around 100, almost 13 or 14 districts in the country. But the bulk of the tax is coming from the CBD, meaning that the majority of the taxpayer in terms of numbers don't pay tax. And if you look at these taxes, actually there are issues in the way our taxmen or people in charge of tax policy do their thing. That every financial year, parliamentarians have been arguing that we need to widen the tax base so that we lower the tax and make it easier and enjoyable for everybody to pay tax, because it's a civic duty. That if I expect services in the hospital, then I must pay tax so that I find a service. But what is actually, when you talk about collection revenue, you must talk about the expenditure as well. I talked about this CBD contributing 85%. We have all along been demanding that what is the government plan to widen the tax base and then bring the many citizens into the tax bracket. So that we lower the tax. Because for instance now, I want to tell you, personally, I have a business I run. I pay corporate tax, which is income tax for an individual. I pay VAT. And I want to explain this VAT thing, because I see many people have actually not understood VAT.
Please.
You see, VAT is value-added tax. In other words, there must be value added on a product. If I'm a manufacturer, as I am, and I pass on a product to a wholesaler, to pass it on to a retailer, which retailer sells to the final consumer, who would pay VAT. Now the law as created the VAT to be multi-stage tax. That as I sell, I sell to a wholesaler, I must issue an FMS receipt. And that would factor in VAT. When a wholesaler is passing it on to the retailer, is supposed to do the same. Two things there to me are a challenge. The first is that actually you are making my product expensive, and yet there's no value added by a wholesaler receiving a product and passing it on to the retailer, to the retailer, who passes it on to the final consumer. There's no value added in my view. And the other issue, you are making the product expensive. Where we go in the market, they are the big players who don't pay tax, they're exempted. In case actually those big players, some are supposed to pay tax. Government pays for them the tax. You understand? There are those who are outrightly exempted, or there are those whom government pays for the tax. Still they don't pay. Like if you follow a certain threshold, you apply to the Ministry of Finance. And once you follow, the Ministry of Finance can take on to pay for you, to pay your tax. The tax is assessed, but the government pays for you.
What you consider, is that an incentive?
Yes, it's an incentive, but you see they have set their threshold so high that to the local manufacturers, it is not very easy to fall into those brackets in terms of capital requirement. You understand? So as a result of making my product expensive, by quoting multi-stage tax in terms of VAT, you understand? They are also now exempting another competitor. So when you go to the market, if for instance I'm selling this phone, the one who is exempted will actually sell it lower because he's not paying a tax on the phone. So that foreigner or foreign investor, he has a leverage over me in terms of business. And what have we done as manufacturers? I see some of the traders also, they keep on confusing themselves. We don't want politics. But you see, politics determines everything. So that the effect of VAT as a multi-stage tax to manufacturers, it has caused the elimination of the wholesaler and the retailer. You understand? Because for us, the local manufacturers, who have no incentives from government, because if I allow the middleman in terms of wholesaler and the retailer to sell my product, is going to charge VAT So what have we done as manufacturers? We have bought vehicles, trucks, we load in our product and go to the final consumer and sell at a price competitive with another foreign investor whom Museveni is taking as a priority to this country. And now we are competing in the field. But that has eliminated two people, the wholesaler and the retailer, who would be having employment in that regard. That's what people need to understand. Because I've been seeing the traders saying, these manufacturers now, they are selling. There's no law stopping us. You understand? Because the traders are saying they don't want politics. Now for us who know the politics and know the business, you understand? Because we must survive, we must compete with another preferred manufacturer whom government has brought, and he doesn't pay tax and he's selling at zero. Because at the end of the day, nobody is going to buy my product because I'm an indigenous investor. They are looking at what's the cost of a product because you are in a competition. So that alone, their imposition of a tax, VAT, in stages where it's not necessary, it is running people who would be employed, and they're going to become a problem now to government. They are running into their PDM, picking money, not having any way actually to invest. That's one. Two, when I collect a tax, assuming I'm forced, because the IFRS system, immediately after invoicing a wholesaler, because when we also give them product, they also actually don't pay. We give them products on credit. They also give to the retailer on credit. Yet at the end of the month, URA treats it as a sale. So they must give me an invoice and say, this month, according to our system, you have sold this amount of product, so please pay our VAT. Because first you don't know that you have given it out on credit. You understand? You see, there are things
the system does not
the system
that
doesn't work, and that's why even you see, I was talking to one of the ministers, and say, you see, the things you are doing, they're not practical. That's why all of them keep on defending this system. After losing theirs, none of them can come to business and thrive. You understand? So the question will be, how come this economics doesn't work for you? And these tax things which work for you. Two, now I've talked about the VAT and this problem. You'll go to the withholding tax. Withholding tax also has a threshold for exemption, where they exempt with a payer from paying if you have a certain volume of money, which they keep on insisting. And this also now benefits the foreigners, because according to their capital, they are within the threshold where they exempted. What does this mean? That if I'm to pay 30% as corporate tax or as income tax from my business, it's money taken away. If I must pay 18% plus 30%, that's 48%. They tell you that VAT is recoverable, but you can't put a claim and recover it from URA. I tried it. I had over 100 something amount of money in VAT. But when I put in a claim, they should an audit against me. When they realized that actually I'm truthful, they said, okay, we are verifying. They issued another audit, so to scare me away from actually making the claim. But by the time we reached that level of them paying me even some small money, the same money actually had gone down. So what happened to these other small traders of ours? Because some of them don't keep books of accounts, they either don't have the knowledge, or they even don't believe. Maybe you see, they don't have the knowledge. They even don't have people who have advised them so to do. Once you make any claim, then set an auditor, they make your business collapse. Because the essence of instituting an audit against you is to make you not to make a claim. You understand? So if you have 30%, you have 18%, now you have 6% withholding tax. We are at 54. You understand? Now at 54, they are now withholding also. Because if I'm being paid by, let's say, government, and you withhold my 6%, this will be capital to deploy to go and then also make profit. So to a small manufacturer or supplier or business person, because I talked of 30% plus 18, that's 48, plus 6%, that's 54. Now they are not necessarily taxes, but they are drawings, and they reduce the disposable income of people we pay NSSF, we pay dues from KCCA, we pay all these, and there are very many actually who come in to take it. So you realize that actually a business person actually is giving almost 70% in terms of collection by government. Even this, and to them, whether I've made the money now like for VAT, because we also sell on credit, to the extent that now the bills has been distorted because of lack of trade order. Government has felt like to regulate Chikubu. Because before we would manufacture, give to our agents in Chikubu to sell. What have they done? They have allowed people to counterfeit our products. That once I take a product in Chikubu, it is expensive. Someone is said, for instance, I manufacture jik. When I sell jik is actually under the standard. It's supposed to be 3.5 for home use. When I take it there and I'm selling, let's say, a bottle, 750 at 15,000. There's someone who is selling the same size, 750, actually at 7,000. But that bottle they are selling, if you look at this percentage, it is 1.2. You understand? And for them, they're saying, no, look, first you're looking at making the money. But from even from a moral and ethical standards, if the standards say home use jik is 3.5, why should I sell one at 1.2? Because I want to make money. It doesn't add up. So what do? We close the shops in Chikubu. That's why those Basubus are saying that, you know, Your Excellency, the manufacturers are selling to the final consumer. Yes. Because they have not listened to us. Some of us who are ethical, I'm not going to dilute and sell. I say I'm selling a jik when it is not a jik. I'm selling sanitizer which is not sanitizer. It doesn't make any sense to me. So what we are doing, we are reaching out, edging out the people. So the area, because you see also what people need to understand, that if almost 60% or 70% are taxes in my business, so I'm remaining with a very small disposable income for myself actually to survive. Yet, in our businesses of today, there is a cost which is not an allowable deduction, which is the corruption or facilitation. That in all these government businesses we run, there is corruption. Do you understand? Like I was telling some of them that you submit a product, let's say for testing, it takes ages. Other people submit and they get the result. Then when you ask, you're taking up, they say, honorable. You see, for you seem don't believe in corruption, the things will not move. So at the end of the day, every Ugandan pays facilitation, which you can call corruption, but that's not an allowable deduction in the law. I shall not be budgeted for.
You can't account for
but
it.
the big companies all over the world, the multinationals, for them they budget it as facilitation. You understand? But for me, whose disposable income has reduced, which has been taken actually by the people, by the government. And remember, if I have a loan, the government doesn't help me, which takes all this money on payment of the loan. You understand? Yes, for me, I have an obligation. I have a loan to pay. I have all those schedules by the bank, but I'm losing a lot of money. So what must we do? We need a comprehensive tax review study. You understand? Because for now, like when you look at this economy of this so-called, now even the one revelation, 69% of the GDP is held by foreigners. If you look at our GDP, 69% is held by the foreigners who are in the CBD. And if you go, the 10% which is held by Ugandans, if you also get to it to know who are those people doing it, that is one who are actually getting tax holidays, whom government is donating money to go and try to do business, who people are going to try to do other things. So you see, unless we do a career study on the, you see, for government to say that for them just want to collect money. I've seen this gentleman, the spokesperson of URA. I think he has I don't know whether he does any business. Because when he just giving us figures. That in Tanzania, they are collecting this trillion. In Kenya, they are collecting this trillion. Yes, they are collecting, so what? The economy is different. You understand? Understand our environment. Context. Because when defining who must pay VAT, if you say VAT is a consumptive tax, the question is, what value is there in me buying, for instance, a bottle of jik, or passing it to a wholesaler, who passes it to a retailer? What value has been added there? All these things must be discussed. Let government not look just as a way of getting money, because they see this is the money to get. Because some is in and you remember, other than those taxes I've told you, I drive, when I buy fuel, I pay money, a levy on fuel, on it. Yet on the road under which I'm passing, we had passed the road fund, which was supposed to make money, go to the road fund and work on the roads. The roads are just funny. They have spoiled our vehicles. There are a lot of indirect taxes we pay on top of what actually I've told you. So this has become a tax country. You understand? And there is no country which has developed by overtaxing its people.
Honorable, I'm going to ask you to hold on to your point. I'll return shortly, but let me bring you, Joseph, in by highlighting some of the key aspects of these new pieces of legislations that have been passed by the government in the week ending. For example, Honorable here has alluded to the new imposition in terms of the tax levy that has been added on fuel, the 1,550 shillings. Of course, as we understand, this has a trickle-down effect that affects the whole chain of production of the economy. Because as you know, fuel, I think, is the chief enabler of facilitating that process. Then we have the value-added tax amendment, where the government has now made it obligatory for the employers to collect VAT on donated goods to their employees. Now, analysts have argued that this is going to, in a sense, I think, hamper the donation culture of the employers. So I want you to make for us an assessment of these new pieces of legislations, of course, respecting the economic realities of the economy today. Is this a sustainable way of, levying taxes?
Thank you, Isaac, and I think I have to start by thanking Honorable Paul Mwiru, because I think he gets into how the last mile citizen is going to feel the pain of the mistakes of our dysfunctional government system that cannot regulate the appetite of the executive to, without good cause, impose unreasonable taxation rates on different categories of taxable issues. And let me try to break this down. If you look at the tax that has been put on fuel, and you then juxtapose that to the minority report which was presented by Honorable Semojo Uganda, he tells you that Uganda levies the highest tax on fuel within the East African region. And I totally understand that we are landlocked, but what I don't understand is how that then makes the cost double. Two, how that becomes ground for what Honorable Musasizi then said, that after COVID, in every year, we are supposed to be adding money on the cost of fuel per liter every year. How does that raise that appetite? And now that's one issue. Then there is the second, which is that the committee report on those all tax bills, you can read out of there, the excise duty amendment bill, the tax procedures. There was one issue that was consistent in all those reports, and the issue was that the certificate of financial implications that was presented by the Minister of Finance on those tax bills lacked one, and these are basics, the revenue estimates we are going to be getting from those specific tax bills that they are trying to implement. Two, it was lacking, and this is like the most important thing, it was lacking the impact of these new tax proposals that were being presented by Ministry of Finance, by Minister of Finance. What that means is that there is panic within the central government to cover for a possible revenue gap which either has been caused by the influx of aid out of the country due to the recent laws that we've been having and the shrinking democratic space, and as a result they are just throwing taxes around, because how how can the entire Ministry of Finance, we all know it has a research department, we all know that URA has an entire research lab and research department that is led by a doctor. How can they present bills that lack those two specific assessments? One, the possible impact of these bills and what it is going to have on the economy. Two, on what the revenue estimates are going to be. So I feel like there is a fundamental problem there, and that could speak to the general problem we are having as a country. The second thing is to perhaps refer to analysis of global economies. If you've read a book by Dambisa Moyo called Dead Aid, of course, it speaks to the idea that African nations need to tug themselves away from aid. Of course, we've spent 60 years or even more of receiving aid, and we are still at a lot of budget support coming from donor partners. Even when we want to achieve that milestone as a national resistance movement or as a state, I think we need to be fully aware that you are not going to continue milking a cow which is already on its deathbed. And this is very, very vital. We've continued to milk this cow without giving it incentives. And the next step for this cow, and this cow is the Ugandan state and the central business district, as Honorable Paul Mwiru has said, there are two options that are going to come out of that. We're going to see these tax regimes that you have implemented. Citizens are going to, yes, say you've given us tax regimes, they're going to look for every mechanism of evading this tax, because the first approach to unfairness for people is not to comply with unfairness. The first approach normally is to construct mechanisms of avoiding that unfairness. That's the first stage. Now, as the state starts to deal with that unfairness, as you saw in downtown, that is going to take us to the second stage, where people start to say, enough is enough. It is not possible for us to keep bearing this burden of one of the most corrupt regimes in Africa and in the world, and they are continuing to pile on us these tax regimes per year. That is going to create a resistance, and this takes me to the last analysis, which is that the state must actively rethink how it is approaching tax. And this was still in the report of the committee and in the minority report, and Honorable Paul Mwiru has also highlighted that. We must do a comprehensive tax assessment to see where exactly do we want to take this system. Do we want it to simply be a system which is implemented, but it is not achieving those very objectives it is implementing? Are we going to keep just throwing tax bills at the people and saying, okay, you guys are going to figure out how you're going to work that out? So we must know that we have to do something, and I think URA and Minister of Finance need to get into their coffers. As I end, it's important to know that one of the largest, I could call them flaws in our governance systems, is that the traditional system of checks and balances to hold the money-hungry and greedy people has died, and that is the parliament. You know that when the executive brings tax bills, the parliament can veto them until when those specific tax bills are the kind that are not going to make the already sick cow to die. But the parliament, as it stands, it has become a tyranny of the majority by the NRM caucus, ignoring persistent, logical reasons from opposition that the current tax regime as it is cannot work for a third world state like Uganda. And I think that tyranny needs to end. There needs to be forces of dissent within national resistance movement, just like we saw with the Right Honorable Speaker saying, no, we know we are supposed to support the executive in some instances, but on this issue, there are issues that we are making as mistakes that they need to stop. And those forces of dissent need to rise up and stand against the appetite of Ministry of Finance not to consider other issues within the nuance of taxation as they introduce these bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Honorable, you see, what is interesting is that today's conversation is coming against the backdrop of another aborted engagement between the president and the downtown trading community in a bid to resolve the dispute surrounding the IFRI's implementation by the URA. Now,
okay, there were 10 critical issues raised by the traders, IFRI's being one of them.
Yes, so the question I want to pose to you, because effectively the president is the Minister of Finance, it is inconceivable to me that a bill can be introduced in Parliament and passed without his direct input, so to say. But it just forms part of the question. The other aspect is Parliament becoming complicit in schemes to overtax the population, even when they are aware of the grim economic reality? And then, where does it leave the president? Does he have really the sincerity and the goodwill and the good faith to, for example, alleviate this situation for the traders?
Actually, it is two ways. You see, I've been to China. And of course, when I go, I think outside the box. I wanted to understand their tax system. To them, if in a financial year, Paul Mwiru, a taxpayer, doesn't pay tax or fails to pay tax, they don't foolishly just announce that our revenue have dropped this financial year from this to this. They look out to that taxpayer to say what was the problem, because they know that without the taxpayer paying the tax, government cannot run. Here, when traders have issues and they have no pressure to pay tax, you just hear them just announcing that this financial year we didn't collect as we expected, we have collected this, and it ends, the story ends there. That's why when you go to the research, that why most of these companies, it is very difficult for a company to thrive for more than 8 years, these startups. And do you know what they do? They just say, for us, we live in the banks. First, we don't lend startups. They don't inquire into how do you support startups to increase as businesses. Because they don't even value how many jobs are being created by these startups. You understand? All those type of things. But to answer your question, you know, there is a lot of, I was talking about someone who is in the policy department of Ministry of Finance, that, you know, here they advise you. We are supposed to advise the government, but we also get shocked. They push positions through you. Now, come back to Parliament, you know, when the framers of the Constitution created the provision for Parliament to determine ministerial emoluments and allowances, the rationale was the independence of Parliament. And that's why all the time I've disagreed that the parliamentarians must go to the executive to say, sir, we want to increase our allowances or our pay. And that's why the public gets it wrong. Because the public, for wrong reasons, they have kept on attacking Parliament. You understand? Now I'll give an example why all these taxes would pass. It is common sense that we know the fuel price of fuel in the country. When MPs joined Parliament, you understand, there was a price, a pump price, as of then. It is that pump price at which Parliament is paying members of Parliament. But MPs are buying fuel at a different price at a pump. You understand?
So Parliament
now,
never adjusted.
They never adjusted. Now, when the MPs raised that, please, there must be fuel refund. Because we have been lending government, buying fuel at a higher price than what you pay us on, please give us that money. Which I thought Parliament would do in its wisdom without deciding going to the president. Now they say that the MPs must go to the president over the fuel refund. Sick. It doesn't require that. And as a result, when some MPs were opposing some of these oppressive tax bills, now others were murmuring that now when you go that way, we shall not get our fuel refund. You understand?
So they have been
So in other words, they are now trading us for fuel refund, which is the entitlement. You see, I don't belong to a school of thought where, because for me, because that parliament, by the way, you see, there are a lot of things which take place there. In that, now, like in those bills, that if MPs were firm and the support of the public, they would say no to some of those tax bills. But now the president was asking them that if you oppose the fuel levy, where will I get money to give you as a fuel refund? It doesn't work that way. It's an entitlement to an MP because it's a fact. Is being paid money per liter because you know when they are calculating payment to MPs, they what to call the mileage.
Yeah.
For the islands, they call them nautical miles. So one knows that someone to move, like for this MP to Chamuswa, when he's using a boat, he uses these liters. So if you are paying him money, who does not buy those liters, then you are cheating the MOP and is lending to government. You understand? In as long as we don't allow the independence of parliament and they think that MPs, they are an extra of the executive, that's how the court system, the judicial system collapsed. You understand? The president appointed these cadres that you cannot go to court over a political matter and get justice. Now that angle is also closed. You understand? So we closed that angle. Now we are saying parliament, where people thought they would have hope. I've seen my friend Honorable Civic trying to pump sense in the colleagues. But all that good English ends at a point where someone says, now, when you oppose this levy, shall we get our fuel refund? Because MP now is looking at the fuel refund as a lifeline now for him or her to continue doing some politics. So we need to insulate the members of parliament. Whether we should, you know what they proposed? That we don't need all those MPs. We need 2 MPs per district. One female, one male. And that would be, so that will increase the technical people who does research for these MPs. And even, you see, like those MPs, the question would be even in terms of research. For even many of them, when it comes to tax bills, I even doubt whether they were even in the parliament. When the tax bills come, many walk out. They say those are for lawyers.
No, even the speaker's complaint, she said,
because I know.
She said the majority prefer to attend via Zoom link.
No, they don't even attend because they don't even understand, comprehend. You know, tax bills are difficult.
Yeah, they are taking.
And in my view, you see, at the question of any law, there is a rationale, what we call the public policy consideration by the very section of the law. Now, even tax bills are supposed to be treated like any other law. That what is through the cabinet memoranda, the tax bill must show what the bill is intending to cure. But there's a lot of complaint in the public about the oppressiveness of these tax bills. And the tax bills, as the cabinet memoranda comes, it doesn't address the operation because the mischief is that operation. So the tax bills will be coming to create breathing space. You understand, to people. For instance, as I conclude, when I was in parliament, you know, as a manufacturer, we used to manufacture sanitizer. Before we got the exemption on excise duty as local manufacturers, the big companies like Meta, Kachira, they also now manufacturing. And they were selling a small journey at 1 million. At what? So when I was in parliament, I said, but look, let us exempt the local manufacturers. So that there are many in the production chain. Once they produce, the cost will go down. Today, you are selling a jerrycan of 20 litres at 150,000. But remember what we used to buy 5 litres, 500,000. I bought it when COVID had just come. It is madness. Yes. I do it, and I bought it at 500. That's what I said. But can we manufacture this? That's how we started on it. So the issue of the independence of parliament is going to determine the tax. It's going to determine how the MPs react and contribute to that. Because now, like even that budget, I said of budget corruption in the 3% which the government is allowed to spend without parliamentary approval. You understand? And that's why the stealing is taking place. Most of this negative expenditure created, Penet, you have taken all that money, you have not put up anything on the ground. Then at the end of the day, when you come, you ask for more money in the budget. And the same people pass it because they are intimidated. I was asking one of the MP that by the way, when the government is budgeting like for health, they budget for all of us, the population. But I don't go to Mulago. Do you know how many people who don't go to Mulago for treatment? but they are factored within the budget. Where does that money go? Have you ever asked yourself? Because if you don't go to Mulago. When they are doing a budget, the budget for every Ugandan.
Yeah, sure.
You understand?
The
But
assumption
I
is
don't
that
go
every
there,
Ugandan goes to Mulago.
goes to Mulago. So have we discussed these things? But the most important thing is that we need to look at the expenditure bit. I've seen a lot of negatory expenditure. When there was the parliamentary exhibition, whereas you people focused on the Speaker's Parliament alone, it came out clearly that most of the government entities have the corporation responsibility budget, which was so huge. So huge. That it even pushed back people who were now going for the Speaker. You understand? Because if you look at the presidential donation budget,
CSR budget, yeah.
but what does the president have to do to donate? He should have a small budget because all the money goes into service delivery. When I saw this budget which has been passed, if you look at every sector, people are criticizing the Speaker. They have the donation budget. In all of them.
All of them.
So the question is, meaning that even the parliamentarians who are shouting then, because now like I was asking a colleague that, by the way, on a serious note, the other time you were opposing the Speaker of spending the money, and you said this was abominable. But this budget you have passed the same money for it has even gone up. So what is your take? Do you have? Are you okay? You understand? Because I don't understand some of these things. That we need to pay attention to detail. You understand? And say when we do, because you are strangling a trader, a manufacturer, to pay tax. But where are you taking the tax? In the 9th Parliament, transferred expenditure was 300 billion. As we talk today, it's going to 4 trillion. And that is an angle for financial hemorrhage, because we are told that's the money the president throws around buying human beings instead of buying property and a commodity. You understand? So if we close that negatory expenditure of classified, the donations, you may even realize that we can realign our tax system. Because it also doesn't make sense to collect more money than what you need for people to squander. You understand? Exactly. Because you want to squander money, you are putting a nose in someone's... Because you are looking at collecting money. The question would be, can't we cut our expenditure and focus on the critical things first as we realign? Because I was seeing the president, because he got ashamed when he was in Nicololo, then he said that, but we don't overtax. Because we don't explain. Because for me, as someone who started revenue and taxation, I will tell you all these taxes, what actually they mean, what actually they transform into. And when you tell him that he would have no problem to pay those taxes if everybody was paying the taxes, you understand? But the people we are competing with, they don't pay taxes. So they have a comparative advantage over us in the business. And these foreigners you're actually pampering around, when they get money, the profit repatriation, they take the money. When we were in the 10th Parliament, I was pushing we had borrowed a closed investment code of Kenya. That when you bring in money as a purported investor, you must take 10 years to take out the money out of the country. It was rejected. You understand? Because if the money is there in the country, we can actually take benefit out of it. You understand? So, but all these things, the most unfortunate bit is that our elites have gone into the survival mode. Because we started with many people, these are taxation, people have the knowledge. They don't even participate in the civic space of this nature. So if we pass on the knowledge, because I've been seeing the traders trying to argue, to say, Excellency, the manufacturer is selling to the final consumer. Because they're not understanding the logic. So where are the technical people to guide this so that it makes his point better? To tell the president that VAT is a must-stage tax, making the product expensive. You understand? Because at the end of the day, this is not politics. This is law. You understand? To start with before it becomes politics. So unless we make the final, we are widen the tax base. Because when these same people finance the next year, they're going to think of how to tax you more to raise money for the negative expenditure. Just as simple as that. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable, for your views. Focus on Parliament now takes a short break. When you return, we discuss the readiness of the government to conduct the census process.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. In this segment, we assess the readiness of the government and discuss the expectations of the public, even as the country embarks on the census process starting today. I'm going to start with you, Joseph. This is a process that we expect the government has planned for the last 10 years. Interestingly, yesterday there were emerging reports that the census enumerators are protesting the lack of readiness on the part of the government to make available the facilitation that is supposed to facilitate the smooth running of this process. So it is casting a lot of questions on the part of the public as to the seriousness of the government to actually achieve this. So I want to ask the question, are we ready to really conduct the census process?
I wish I was the PR of the entity that is conducting the census. I would have said yes, and then given you all these explanations on how much money the government has extended to us, those amazing trainings we've had across the country, but I am not. So I'm going to give you a sensitive perspective to whether we are ready. So the government has lowered its bar so low to the extent that I saw those reports on Twitter, the ones you're talking about. Enumerators saying that they were being told to sign on forms for transport refund of 1 day, and it was supposed to be for 10 days. The government no longer surprises us. It has normalized incompetence so much to the extent that it's like what you expect from them, so you do not get shocked when that happens. But I want to have faith in the concept of a census to the extent that we need to know how many people we are planning for. We need to know the baseline indicators and see how we can then use the interventions that the state has using the money we have every year to ensure that we can move the indicators like unemployment, indicators like access to healthcare, indicators like the amount of people who are accessing private healthcare vis-a-vis public healthcare. I want to have broader faith. It's also not good to be entirely negative, that even when the system is flawed, we can at least say that there's going to be data, and that data can help us, we the civic educators, to then look at these statistics that are coming from Libos and say that, okay, these are the indicators that we will be holding the state to account to the extent that, okay, this is the data, let's say like poverty. Okay, you said you have been spending money to take 39% of the households from poverty, spending trillions every year in the PDM. Okay, let's see, has that percentage reduced on the amount of households that are living in abject poverty, or have they not? So I want to have faith that even when the system is flawed, even when there are not a lot of reasons to trust the government, that at least, flawed as that data may be, or perhaps, or in whichever form it will be, it will at least give us a glimpse on what indicators we can use for accountability processes in Parliament, accountability processes in the civil society, accountability processes for the citizens on whether the resources that have been committed to the reduction of abject poverty in the north, in the east, in the west, whether that money has been working. I want to keep with that phase.
Thanks, Joseph. Honorable, from a parliamentary standpoint, we appreciate, of course, the concept of the census, like Joseph here has postulated. But from a parliamentary point of view, the purpose of this is supposed to collect this data so that it aids the government in efficiently planning for the population. Let us look back on the last 10 years. Is there any progress that has been achieved? Is this being reflected in the policies and the pieces of legislations that the Parliament is churning out? Is it of any practical, significance and benefit to the ordinary citizen?
Well, Isaac, I want first to make a comment on what I've been seeing around, where the census enumerators were shouting, even tearing the appointment letters. To me, I think those are the dividends of the system. That is the society that I've created. You see the way I've never been a census enumerator myself. And I remember after my senior six, I was not even paid money. And they had told me, no, they said they will pay you. You understand? But to me, it was such a noble duty to work for my country, to participate in an exercise under the assumption that the data would be used. That was there. Why I'm making a comment, that's the challenge we get even as politicians. We get some of you people from whatever you do, others in the trading center, playing card, others playing, doing what, and we give you a noble job of being our agents at the polling station with an appointment letter. But no sooner does someone sit at the polling station at 7 or 6:30, at 8, one is complaining, say, I want to eat, I've not eaten, and I'm going to leave. You understand? So the question is, these processes, do people value them? Now I'm coming to what you have said. Because people know that these processes, even when the government does them and spend money, they don't value them. You do get the clear answer when you look at the ministerial policy statements of entities. Because under the budget process, it starts with a call circular. They write all accounting officers to say, please, we need to get views from the people. What are the political issues in their area which should be attended to? The technical people run, even in your village. I don't know whether you go there. The town clerk and the cows do those budget meetings at the village level to show what you must do. Then they send to Minister of Finance. Then Minister of Finance sends them the second call such that our resource envelope is this. So whatever they want to do now, even the data collection and information collection now becomes useless, because the government is saying now we have now resource envelope, and according to the priority of government, we want to put money in classified expenditure, we want to give money to this, to penalty, we want to give money to so and so. So your priorities don't even matter. That's how you are saying when it came to giving money to the sage, to the elder, they are creating a threshold of almost 8 AI. In effect, they knew. I think it was almost, in effect, they knew that that even when they have taken stock of all the people within the village, of course, if someone retires at 60, why should someone be accessing Sage at 80? Yet the retirement age is 60 in the government. It will be in terms of common sense that the threshold will be 60 years. That whoever has clocked retirement from government must access, because the data is there. They come up with their own rationale and say no, because they want to limit and keep on fooling the elderly that, I put for you money because they're docile and bully. You understand? They would say, no, I put money for you in the villages. You have seen them collapse. If someone of 80 is taken to go and receive that money, and if you look at the statistics, how many are 80 years, they know it's a very small group of people. When it comes to now like Mulago, when they are budgeting the health, they don't follow those statistics of the number of people whom they, when they are budgeting, we normally they what we call the morbidity rate. Morbidity rate determines the type of sickness in areas. You understand? To know which type of medicine they send somewhere which will treat the patient. But still, when it comes to availing money to the Ministry of Health to attend to basing on the statistics they have, they also don't even value. Even when international instruments say that health should have 10%, agriculture should have 10%, you understand? They don't do. For instance, here, in that form of UBOS, they try to know the source of income of people. And the returns are going to be that the majority are in agriculture, either commercial or subsistence. So the focus of a serious government would be that how do we finance to transform the farmers from being subsistence farmers to commercial farmers who have got grants and they ate them. Later, for them, they think that whenever a good thing comes, it's about to them, it's not about the population. Because my understanding is that if you're going to widen tax base after the population census, and you know how many people are dependent on agriculture, you understand, then a serious government would be focusing how do we transform the farmers from being subsistence farmers to commercial farmers. That's why but this, all this, that's why I was telling you when we were off record that all these things we talk, and the government, you see, they listen, but they just abandon and leave them there because they will be borrowing a reef. The take home of this is that the census should be analyzed and say, look, like if the people's lifeline is on agriculture, we should give it this one. What I don't know, I think we need to do another form of census in terms of the natural resources of the country. Because if you look at these natural resources, have been leased out by masqueraders who have license, they're not operating. And even where these natural resources exist, it does not transcend into the wellness of the community from within. Yet the economic lifeline of people would be dependent on the natural resources in the area. Now the census would have brought out that. Do you understand? The politics of economic interest, where would be said that, for instance, in the Musoga, we grow a lot of sugar cane. You understand? If you interview and everybody is saying is growing sugar cane as a source of income, then the next question would be, how do you help these farmers to cooperate them into a group and give them a factory so they don't work for Indians? Of course, some of these things, they seem simple, you understand, but I think we need maybe 20 services of political sociologists so they do some work. Because when I talk that's one is a politician, he's reasoning as a lawyer, he's doing what, they are very dismissive because they want everybody to go into the survival mode. But this census would bring out a number of things, you understand? Because if you find many people are surviving on the water bodies, if you go to Seychelles, they are tourism and fishing. Just fishing. How have they done it? They have supported the people. Uganda, 40% of Uganda is water bodies. So how do we help people to stop hunting the fish? You understand? To do fish farming like they do in developed countries. So that the business come, and then you collect some taxes from that community. You understand? But what for them, they think they have assessed, they're going to deploy UPDF to beat up people who are not about this one. So it is like a joke. So, but in other words, this statistics, why we support the population census? But it gives us data, so that as we are speaking on based on, like I told you when we started the show, that the last time we checked, our GDP is in the CBD, meaning that almost 85% of the country is doing nothing, and the president fears to take that to tax them because he thinks they will become political and not vote for him.
Not vote, yeah.
So he would rather leave them not forming part of the taxable bracket, and they are in their slum. You understand? So some of these things, and there is a whole department, the Ministry of Finance, on tax policy. I have a friend there, so one time I was giving my ideas that this one don't work. People just want to see, they want to focus on the people who already there paying the tax, who have the money. but the thinking should go out. So that the next population census after 10 years should be an indicator on how government, or the impact of the government, of the program of government on the people. You understand? It's not rocket science, by the way. It is realigning. Okay, we need to realign the leaders so that they know our focus. You understand? Because this was the only thing in terms of votes. They don't think in terms of where do we want to be as a country, the remnants. Because if you look at the influence, you see one time in Parliament and the Committee on Foreign Affairs was telling us we have over almost 12 million Ugandans, adult Ugandans out of Uganda.
Really?
Yes, when they were giving the data in Sudan, the data all over in the diaspora.
Yeah.
It was a very big, and no one was wondering.
That's a significant number.
It was big, and people are debating that is it true or not true. But I said, but you see, this is the data from our committee of Parliament that we don't want to have hope in the remnants. Those who took over, who will return when we have all died. They don't know, again, create order. So that, because you see, like here, we do the research, we do the census, we do everything. Rwanda comes, benchmarks here, and implement. Because some of these variables, they're just the same. The only paradigm shift is knowing that when you are doing this exercise, it is for the population, not for the individuals. And you see, the effect, I started by telling you, the effect of creating a useless population is that it comes back to you. Like what you see today, like social media abuse all the time. We kept on asking, you know, when they did the population census, I think that some 10 or 20 years ago, the first 10, they brought out the number of people, because Ministry of Education would tell us that the enrollment rate at P1 is 8.5 million. That caused an audit in the primary. So, but if they're 8.5, how come those who sit for P7 are 1 million? Where does the 7 million disappear? Someone must account for those people. After the census, now those who sit for P1, they are 3.5 million. So we were arguing, where does the 2 million go? The would-be doctor is on the border. You understand? The would-be engineer is somewhere, because it disappeared within the middle. Who can account? I was somehow impressed when I saw the Ministry of Education trying to make up, you name, I think for those who are who had somehow disappeared. Because we have been singing it over a period of time. That when you don't pay attention to those things, you will get the type of enumerators they actually recruited. you understand? They actually recruited. Simply because the patriotism collapses at that point. That everybody thinks people are not serious. People are getting public money using the way they want. Now, because now like this one, even in terms of, you see, UBOS is a planning aid. It's under Minister of Finance, Plan, Economic Development. That's what UBOS is. Why do you say that you have money for one day, then another one comes? They would even have gone to MTN, instructed them that this money should be paid on people's mobile phone. Because why should we make an enumerator? Very desperate. Because what an enumerator will do, can sit and start feeding in wrong information. You understand? And give you, I've seen research companies where they get people, they don't pay them well, they give people questionnaires. People just sit and start to give them wrong information. And in return, and then they just get away with the money. Why would we go this way? Because I've seen UBOS that tried to create awareness, to involve stakeholders, to do everything. They had tried. But how would they miss out on this? Because you see, they ought to have done like a test thing internally, to develop a checklist within, and say in terms of this, are we this? In terms of this publicity, they say maybe we are at 8. How are we prepared to deal with this? Start at the end of the day. But if you assume that which is in charge of planning, this is how it has started, then one will just imagine whether the people they go to do the work, whether they are the right people. You understand? Because it's also not about just someone who knows how to write. Some of those questions are very irritating, which they ask. Some must have the patience, must have been trained. The sporting must have been spot on. Not just getting anybody. You understand? But you see those details. We cannot be that we carry out census after 10 years, just becomes a ritual. We just do it. There must be also a criterion to know that how was this population census accurate? What did we do right, which we need to correct next time? What did we do right, which we must maintain? It can't be that I just trying just to do anything the way they're trying to do. I don't know. I didn't rush to criticize them because personally, from my background, where I was brought up, I also didn't like the way you can't pay a government property. An appointment.
Oh, yeah.
What type of person do you want to be? You understand? That, to me, that shows that actually that was a wrong group of people whom they elected for the job. Because we also face the same. You appoint an agent, you take him at the polling station at 7. At 8, he's calling, hello, if you don't bring me breakfast, I'm leaving. So what just imagine is, what would happen if this man is given 50,000 at midday? Won't he just send me off that actually I've lost the election at that particular point? So it also goes back to how did you arrive at your agent? That's why for now, like for me, whenever I'm campaigning and I find some passionate young boys and girls and I see them passionate about the message, I try to talk to them. I normally write to them their names and the contact. After I meet them to see whether I can realign them or they are damaged beyond the repair, they cannot be just be a supporter. You understand? So that's how you do sporting. You sport, guerrilla ideologically, convince and task. You see, it is a tool which one must use. But if I saw the one of Wakiso, I saw one of Kapaso, I said, no, there must be suckers in the entire country. Because there are those who don't have phones. There are those who don't have phones, who don't know even how to use the phones to feed him something to send. They must even have just abandoned the material in the field and the left. After there's nothing tangible they have received. But you cannot run a country like that and develop. You understand? See, to me it is a checkpoint. Because for me, like in points, I normally watch social media. When I see young people being abusive, being what, but because as a criminologist, I study the patterns and I say, but how did you reach this level? What is the antidote? For my friend, the president, he just buys guns and tear gas and arresting. Because when we think can solve it that way. But we need criminologists, political sociologists, to study the situation. They always said, we talked about tax. It's the same way we need to understand. Because the census is for the good of everybody. You understand? Why should the wananchi support a government program of that nature, which wants to realign the resources from where they have been wasting to the correct direction?
Thank you, Honorable. Joseph, even as we conclude, I want you to shed light on one critical aspect in terms of the expectations of the public, and also what could be your patriotic guidance to the viewers out there.
I could say that in as much as we look like we are in a dysfunctional society, I think there are still glimmers of hope. There's still hope that if you do your part and continue to remain vigilant, then perhaps you can push the state towards one which is not as bad as people are prescribing it, because we look to be coming from bad to worse to worst. But if you do your part by not being a cancer on the nation itself, then at least it means we would have reduced the possible suffering Uganda would be having by the burden you would be giving. And this is very important, because I see that the next generation, which is following from the generation which has rerouted a lot of resources, itself, as Honorable Paul Mwiru said, it has serious value challenges. They are not holding on to any serious values, and I am worried that perhaps they have learned from the best, and they are likely to take this country even to a worse abyss, and I think that's very, very, very important. But back to the topic that we had, primarily, it is a patriotic duty for every Ugandan to pay a tax. It is the rent you have to pay to belong to this society. For you to belong to a civilized society, you have to pay the tax. And in as much as that the government is not dealing with this addiction of spending, it does not mean we should not still make our contribution. I think we should still continue paying our taxes, continue abiding to ensure that as a state we are at least covering most of our essential services, but also while active in doing our duty of ensuring that this money we given to the state is utilized for the right cause. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Joseph. Honorable, your closing remarks on the program respecting the topic and the patriotic guidance to the viewers.
Well, nobody wants this chaos which is taking place in the country, but I just want to say that it is the effect of the long-term seeds we have been sowing. It's not too late. This country belongs to all of us. We have a duty even to start afresh and agree that we need to do things the correct way. But this must start with the top. You understand? Because I'll give an example that even as, and everything starts with politics. As we are moving all this, we have been seeing the machination being done by the president, trying to strategically hand over power to his son. You understand? To the electoral commission, the what? So people know that in Uganda there's nothing you get out of doing the correct thing. There must be chaos. Everybody must go into the survival mode. To me, I think it is not yet too late. I'm making a call to all of us as leaders to start to lead by example, do things the correct way, so that the young people have something to emulate. If we don't do that, we are creating some form of chaos which will catch up with us. Because I've seen colleagues who say, no, for me I've taken my children out of the country now. If you understand. So I was asking, what? Then you were
Stop government.
You have taken this. No, the beauty is that they're all returning in the rehabs. All those who have gone out, you know, our God is a good God. In a way, because they have negated their responsibility of building up the country, and they take the children to international schools. They go there, they return in the rehabs. Like I have a friend of mine who had two in the rehab. And I say, now that's what you have reaped. Yet some we always say, now this man, because you see, I'm telling you, if you negate doing what is correct to build a public good for the country, and for you think you can steal money from the taxpayer, from the wananchi, you take your children to go and study in an international school where they will have a prom where you spend over 30 million, 50 million, they will get a chopper, and you think you are very powerful. We also keep on praying on our knees that those who steal our public money, may their children be rewarded by returning in the rehabs. Because if you go by in those rehabs, most of the children of senior people in government are in those rehabs. You understand? Because you are not creating a system. You are taking your child in a foreign system where drug abuse is almost the order of the day. You understand? They have learned a lot of vices, and by the time they return them to you, they are not human beings. Yet you are the duty of creating order within your own country. So we don't lose our culture. This is what I told you, that if it were me who tore a piece of paper, and my mother saw me doing that, oh, I would be cooked. I would know what exactly I would receive, because I was not brought up that way. So as we allow society to break down and think we are masters of everything, we can take our children out of the country, we can do what? Those social trappings out there. That's why I say, let it be the responsibility of everybody. That yes, we are almost a failed state now, but it's not too late for us to start from where we are and do things the correct. After all, nobody has benefited out of the chaos which has been created. Because nobody is safe to an extent that even an MOP cannot do his duty because he's worried of his funeral fund. Then that shows you, that speaks volume about the entire country. Because an MP is a gatekeeper. That's why all the taxes we collect, we put in the constituted fund. And they say, to the money to leave the constituted fund, and Article 150, 51, 2, 3, and 3, Parliament must do a vote and must get out by an appropriation act. But the gatekeeper will have put is deflated, is in the survival mode. You understand? So it is the responsibility of everybody, not only even of politicians, of every citizen, wherever you are. You have a duty to do the correct thing in this country. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable, and Mr. Joseph Tahinduka, for your able participation on the program. To our esteemed viewers, once again, we appreciate you for keeping us company from the startup to the conclusion of this program. Many thanks to the production unit for keeping us live on air. And please engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and you can subscribe and watch this program on our YouTube channel. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.